this past week. Dawn was the teacher in Londonderry for 5 years and became the first principal of North School for 30 years. He won the Principal of the Year award, but more importantly, Dawn was truly a friend to the students, a human being, a very, very nice person. I was fortunate enough to have 4 boys go through the school with him as the principal. And with my 4 boys, I know some of the time was trying and he lost his hair, and I know one of my boys helped him a lot with losing his hair. And that boy is now a teacher. So he battled cancer courageously. He was married for 15 years to Pauline. Truly was a love story for all times. And I wish Pauline well, and our hearts go out to both of them, and I know Dawn is in the right spot.
Thank you. If we could ask for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Kafa, welcome. Could you lead the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ron. Let's see. Questions, announcements, and presentations. Go ahead, Ron.
I've got a couple of questions.
One sec. Oh, come on up. No, go ahead, Ron.
Okay. Excuse me, I have 2 questions. First one is, previously we had spoken about the blizzard bags, and I was just wondering what the status of that was going and how that was moving.
Okay, Andy can respond to that.
We have had a committee formed. We have representatives from the kindergarten, the elementary, the middle school, the high school, and allied health. The committee has met and started the discussions of exactly what format the blizzard bags will take. Some of the pieces that we're working with Kearsarge, who was the school district to start it, was that they had a parent survey and a staff survey that would like to get out and get parent feedback on things like computer access when you're considering multiple children in the same family having to access that computer on the same day. And we're also looking at pieces of the blizzard bag electronically versus in paper form. The elementary folks believe there's an element for them that will be in paper form. The high school is looking at tracking mechanisms with X2 to see how many students are responding to that, and then how we'll track assignments the day we come back from a blizzard bag. So there are a number of things underway. Kearsarge, one of the things they did that has been raised by the teachers is Kearsarge provided each staff member with a laptop in order to perform blizzard bags. Obviously, in these fiscal times, I don't see that happening, but that is one piece for discussion, as well as the number of hours a staff member would be responsible for monitoring the computer at home.
Okay, let me ask a question. Do we need state approval?
Oh, I can respond to that. The state in their regs are approving the use of a certain number of days as quote-unquote blizzard days or blizzard bag days. So it would not run into any issues with the state. And
Okay.
we'll be able to count them as school hours.
When will we, when will we bring this to conclusion?
I think we'll come back to the board sometime in the fall with the potential of, if everything goes well and the teachers agree, with some form of implementation probably after the first of the year. We traditionally don't have that many snow days prior to the first of the year, so we're discussing that. I mean, one of the other differences is Kearsarge did this because their buses travel about 4,300 miles daily. So the number of days they're out of school is significantly more than the other districts. The only other 2 districts who have adopted it, Cornish and Campbell over in Litchfield. Part of the difference between Campbell and us is just the size, the scope of monitoring a high school curriculum for that. And it's also the planning time of putting these packets together so that it doesn't just become busy work.
Okay. It'd be interesting to see the conclusion of that, because, again, around this time when we start getting to the second and third week in June, I hear complaints from the entire stakeholders in the district, how the district is going so long, and how short the summer is on both parents and teachers. And I find it interesting that it's this much of a discussion.
There
Okay.
is,
Before you change the subject on
Sure.
blizzard bags, just thinking back to the ice storm that started this all, which was in December, is there really no hope in having something in place before Thanksgiving?
I would say there is definitely a divide between the representatives on the committee, and there have been some discussions with the union as a whole. So I don't necessarily see it going as quickly as we had hoped.
Anything we can do to help?
I think the vast majority of people want something to happen. What that something is the sticking point. I think we'll get there. The committee is making progress every time we meet, and they're going back and doing a wonderful job in their buildings, getting feedback from their staff members. So I'm not, I think by the fall we'll be able to come back to the board and give an update and give you a progress report. If we were to go south and have difficulties with that, I think I would come back over the summer.
Anybody else with anything on this subject?
What are you finding to be the biggest sticking point? Just out of curiosity?
It is part of it is the monitoring of the computer, and the staff's worry about multiple children in the family. We realize the internet access is very high, but if you're looking at a high school student, if they're going to be accessing the computer for all of their subjects, how does the younger sibling get on? So there is a support from some levels and some concerns from others.
What we may want to do is pull out the report that was done by the Technology Committee, where we found that there was a very, very high percentage in the 70s and 80% of the houses that had multiple computers in them, and internet access was some huge number, even greater than that.
Right.
So that may be a starting point. That was a random across the district at all elementary schools, I believe, at 5th grade.
Steve?
I make a motion to increase the school year 10 days.
Second.
Me too.
Telling you, I think the summer vacation's a heck of a lot shorter in India, and they're eating our lunch. And I'm watching them on the internet every day. I just had some ads disapproved because they didn't like the name on a particular website I have. And all the people that were connecting in to deal with my issue were in India.
In fact,
So have a good summer.
something that I've mentioned to Nate, and I think others have as well, is the possibility of convening a group to look into extended school years, extended school days sometime, maybe starting in the fall, I think we had talked about. So if we could keep that on the table, I think Steve would probably want to sign up.
Would I?
I think we all might.
Yeah.
Rob?
Second thing was, in the last budget process, I had spoken about taking a deep dive in certain parts of the budget and kind of laying out the budget in years, because we get into the budget cycle and you really can't go very deep in it. You kind of go a little bit on it. So I was wondering if the board still had an interest in, over the summer and in the beginning of the fall, is to take deep dives into certain parts of the budget and then rotate it through, so in the 3 or 4 year period that you've gone through the budget, you understand it and see how it all connects. And so it would be better for us in the community to understand how that whole budget is put together in different areas.
Comments?
I'm with that, absolutely.
I would personally love to do that, and I'd like to include in the process, in the learning, any members of the budget committee and other stakeholders who would like to obtain the same degree of knowledge to have a way to participate as well.
It would be a regular board meeting. I
Yeah.
was thinking more of a workshop type of arrangement.
And I think in doing it, I think using the concept that the dollars are basically just a financial picture of what we're looking to accomplish. I think the way we would approach it would be, here are the programs, this is what it takes to run the programs, this is why these certain requests would be, whether it's staffing, or technology, or textbooks, or time, what have you. I think that would be, from my perspective, I think that would be the best way, because having the board have a budget committee as deep an understanding of the programs, that helps you understand the money.
Right.
So the focus wouldn't be, here is $10 million worth of stuff, whatever that stuff is, whether it's facilities or curriculum. This is what the program is, this is what the programs are, this is what they consist of, right? And then as a result, this is what the cost is. So the dollars are following the programs, using the philosophy that you budget your plan as opposed to planning the budget.
Right.
Okay? And I think what we, in looking at it, I think what we would try and do, if we try to do, let's say, 2 night, we would take what I would call a heavy topic and a lighter topic, if you want to call it that. So might hook up curriculum, let's say, and I'm just making this up, with transportation. Yeah, something like that. So, and we can see how it goes. If it turns out that curriculum or the regular ed program is going to take up most of the night, so be it, and then we can always do the lighter subject at another time. Okay, so what we will do is try and give the board a sequence. So we'll say we'll try this and this on whatever date, and that on another date. And give it to your board for approval.
My purpose is not to do the whole budget.
Right.
It's just sections, and next year, the board would do another couple of sections over the summer.
I would say that what we'd want to do is take the major components of regular ed and the major components of special ed, which are the really big drivers, and then maybe a couple of ancillaries long term, but maybe facilities and then something else. So we do. Would a board feel comfortable with like doing 4 areas? Would you guys be okay with that?
I would be fine with it.
So you basically want a quarter?
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be fine.
And what we'll do is we'll try and front
No,
end load it.
excuse me, no, I don't think that would be 1 1/4. I think that would be, if we were doing 2 a night, that would be 2 nights, as opposed to 1 1/4, which would be 8.
I would think that if I could, I would think that the first year, what we may want to do is front end load it a little bit, so that we try to get through 4 before you guys get the budget.
That'd be perfect.
Okay? And then what we can do is take a little vacation as far as that's concerned, and then in the spring, do a couple more, and then in the summer, do a couple more, so that by the time the second cycle comes around, we'll have gone through everything. Is everybody comfortable with that?
That would be a sensible approach. Okay.
This is something that I think would also be good, and I'm glad you brought up the idea, because 2 things that we always look at around budget time are, first, finding ways to make sure the community has the information to understand the numbers that we're requesting. And second, candidly, developing bench strength for future candidates who might want to come on the board. I know that my first year through a budget cycle was drinking from a fire hose, and some preparatory information like this would be really helpful in preparing people for what they're going to be facing soon after getting here. So, great ideas, thank you. Anything else, Ron?
That's it?
Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to share with the board and the audience a note and a gift we got from the Londonderry High School students. Congratulations, Moose Hill students. It gives Londonderry High School students great pleasure to present these Class of 2023 t-shirts to the Moose Hill students completing their first successful year in the Londonderry School District. We wish you 12 more years of success, and we look forward to hearing about all of the wonderful things you continue to achieve and enjoy in school. Sincerely, the Future Educators Academy, the Drama Club, the Londonderry Education Association, the 2011 class officers, 2012 class officers, the 2013 class officers, and the 2014 class officers. And each kindergarten student, and the high schools came down to present it, got a Class of 23 Lancers t-shirt.
Yeah.
That's great. Can you hold it up a bit longer? Kelly, can you get that?
Beautiful.
Great, thank you.
And one of the things that
Well, I was
note
gonna
that
gear to-
the lance is a crayon.
It is? 2023. Boy, if that doesn't give you chills, I don't know what will.
Picture of a crayon, yes, thank you very much.
That's great. Thanks very much. Reed, did you have something? Okay. Any other questions, comments from the assembled multitude?
I think I had one.
Go ahead, Steve.
It is a picture of a crayon. You'd have to be here for a few years to understand how important that is. I received I'm sorry, but Chairman Robinson received a note from a past school board member, George Herman. And the reason I bring that up is I really want you to appreciate the last line in this, because we all know his sense of humor. Ryan Vanderveen, who is class of 2011, will be graduating this week, and he's earned the rank of Eagle Scout. He began his career, his scouting career back in PAC 901, which I was a chairman of for several years. And he's an active member in Troop 109 to this day. And people should know that a very small percentage normally in the United States get Eagle. We do have a larger amount of people here in the community of Londonderry that get Eagle, which is very impressive. I think it says a lot about the community. His community service project was to construct and install a signpost at Camp Pagon Key at the YMCA. He'll be receiving his Eagle Scout award this Saturday, June 11th at 2:30. The ceremony is going to be held at Blue Seal Feeds. His parents work there. It's nice to have a nice corporate citizen in town like Blue Seal Feeds at their corporate office. They have also indicated that refreshments will be served after the ceremony, and George just assumes that that won't be Blue Seal Feed at the ceremony. And he's asked if a member of the school board would attend and recognize him for this, and I begged John if I could do that. So I appreciate you allowing that to be done, John. We present a flag that's been flown over the high school to these Eagle Scouts, and we present them with a letter that they can put into their letters that they get from all the really important people. So it's a good event, and I'm glad that the board supports these boys.
Thank you, Steve. Anything else? All right, moving on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion?
So move.
May I have a second? Motion by Ron, second by John. John, you have a...
Yes, the board would like to recognize Mary Ann Connor, who is retiring. Mary Ann began as a grounds monitor for the high school in September of 1998. She moved to the front door monitor in August of 2001. To quote high school administration, Ms. Connor is so supportive, professional in her interactions with the students and faculty, and ready to go the extra mile to ensure that the assistant principals have the information they need to monitor students' whereabouts. In August of 2003, Mary Ann became the 504 assistant. Katie Sullivan states that Ms. Connor should be commended for her dedication and tireless amount of hours that she puts in with her students on the 504 plans. She takes pride in knowing each and every student she works with. She will be deeply missed by students and staff at the high school. We wish her the very best in her retirement.
Thank you, John. Upcoming meetings, June 9th, 7 p.m., Baccalaureate at the Palace Theater. Come watch Londonderry seniors get, what, $80,000, $100,000 worth of scholarships in a given year? It's really amazing, the amount of support that a lot of these kids get from local and not so local organizations. Let's see, graduation the following night, June 10th, 7 p.m. at the Verizon Center. All are welcome. No tickets are necessary. There is no limit on the number of people you can bring. Adult Ed graduation next Monday at LHS 6:30 in the cafeteria. And our next regular meeting is June 21st here at the town offices at 7 p.m. All in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Committee reports.
John,
Yeah.
Nancy has-
I'm sorry, Nancy, go ahead.
Did we set dates for our July and August meetings and I just missed it somewhere? We did?
Yes.
Okay, and I can call you about that tomorrow.
No, I'm not giving you the information.
See what
I
happens
bet
when
it's
you're
on the
new.
internet.
You're the new
Wanna
kid
look
in
it up.
town, this is the way they treat
Sorry,
you.
he just quit smoking.
Yeah.
Did you really?
What?
No, I,
No, just within 25 feet of the door.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks. Okay.
July 12th,
July 12th?
that's the only one in July.
That's the only one in July?
Yes, we only have one in July, unless, the only caveat I'll give to that is depending on what happens at the state, we
Yeah.
may wind up having, another meeting or two or three.
And then August 2nd, which is pretty close to July.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
Londonderry.org. For those in the viewing audience.
Okay, everybody else good to go?
Yep.
Okay, Kafa, once again, welcome, and your inaugural student council report, please.
All right. On Thursday, May 26th, the Mu Alpha Theta Math Honor Society inductions took place in room 221 at the high school. The ceremony lasted for about half an hour, during which all the new members were inducted and all the seniors received their graduation cords. On Saturday, May 28th, the senior prom was held at the Atkinson Country Club. The theme of the prom was Midnight on the Mediterranean. All seniors said that they enjoyed themselves and the night was a lot of fun. On Monday, May 30th, the LHS marching band participated in the annual Memorial Day Parade in Londonderry. Overall, the entire parade went very smoothly and the band sounded great. The LHS music department also had their music awards banquet on Tuesday, May 31st. During the event, all the seniors received their plaques and many received numerous awards. Also during the event, the new drum majors and color guard captains were announced for the next year. The drum majors will be Deborah Geiger, Helen Nyman, and Jenica Arsenault. The color guard captains will be Amanda Bentley and Daniel Guerin. Over this past weekend, the LHS math team traveled to Pennsylvania State for their annual Penn State competition. The team did well despite very challenging problems. On Monday, June 8th, the seniors who completed their senior projects showcased their work in the LHS gym. Also yesterday, the LHS girls varsity lacrosse team won their third championship in 3 years. The senior supper took place just a few hours ago in the LHS cafeteria, and the theme was 1950s Las Vegas. At the supper, seniors were given the chance to gamble with paper money at games such as war, blackjack, and roulette. Also at the event, the seniors received their cap and gown for graduation. Overall, the event was a big success, and the seniors enjoyed the night. Tomorrow, the senior class is going to be taking their senior class trip and going to the beach. The underclassmen award ceremony will be taking place on June 9th at 8:10 in the LHS gym, and the senior award ceremony will take place on the same day at 10:30. Also on June 9th is baccalaureate at the House Theater in Derry. On Friday, June 10th, graduation will be held at the Verizon Wireless Arena and will begin at 7 p.m. Doors will open around 6. And the adult ed graduation will be Monday, June 13th at 6:30 LHS.
Great, thank you very much. Steve, what do we got?
Good evening. First of all, I found it difficult, as the temperature in my room was rising, to get my mind around the concept of a blizzard bag. So hopefully that'll all play out. But anyway, the tornado team from the middle school completed their community service project on May 26th. They came and cleaned up the skate park. It's the 5th year they've done it. They collected close to 250 pounds, which was tracked by category, and the information will be used in math class to make graphs, charts, and do other types of analysis. The tornado team also finished a year-long stock market project, and almost every student made money, some making over $1,000 for their 6-month investment of $5,000. From Jeannie O'Boyle at the middle school, the annual Monsoon Team Senior Social was a huge success with an amazing turnout. It was rewarding to see how the students have grown and matured into well-spoken young men and women. So many of them are entering the fields of engineering, sciences, and computers. It was such an inspirational experience. The Monsoon team is made up of George Deno, Doug Stith, Marcia Salvatore, Nancy Marston, and Judy Allison. Laura Lee, the Destination Imagination Coordinator, said that 2 of our Londonderry teams competed down at the Global Finals. Each team placed 21st, positioning them in the top third of their challenges. Way to problem solve, be creative, and think outside the box. Jen Maurice at the middle school says that the Typhoons will be holding their 2nd annual Ancient Egypt Museum tomorrow. Visitors are invited from 1 to 2 in the Typhoon Pod. Students have spent the past month working on their Ancient Egypt displays. From Katie Sullivan at the high school, she'd like to report that the 2nd annual Lancer Day will be held tomorrow, June 8th, from 9 to 11 in the gym. Ms. Sullivan has a fun-filled day set up for the incoming 9th graders to get them ready and pepped up on becoming Lancers. Along the same line, Step Up Day will take place at the middle school tomorrow, also from 9 to 11. Students from 5th, 6th, and 7th grade will get to meet their next year's teachers and be given an and an overview of some of the great things that they will experience. Ms. Sullivan would also like to add that the Big Buddy program had its end-of-the-year party last week. The high school kids who have acted as mentors to the Matthew Thornton students had a joyous party with lots of pizza, face painting, games, crafts, etc. Ms. Sullivan would like to personally thank all the students who were involved in this year's Big Buddy program. From Mr. Jester at the high school, he says that tomorrow he will be driving down to New York with 4 of his angels, Katie Rimmel, Angela Fitzgerald, Alyssa Boccia, thank you, and Daria Lauer. And they will be attending the world premiere of the documentary that Pantene Beautiful Lengths did about their donation back in January. It is at the Trump Soho Hotel. It coordinates with their next big Pantene advertising campaign. Naomi Watts is their Pantene model, and she'll be there. And it should be a nice night having Naomi introduce a film about the LHS and the good things that the students do. Katie Brodeur at the high school. The equestrian team received a huge trophy. We, the Southern District, won the championship for the state of New Hampshire. Unfortunately, they have to share the trophy with other schools like Pinkerton, but it is an amazing victory for the team because all of the challenges they faced this year. It is currently in the main office and will be on display for some time. We will have it Wednesday, June 8th in the lobby for Lancer Day to show the entire upcoming freshman class. Hooray, I am so proud of them. From Jan Armstrong at the middle school, she had a PowerPoint actually to submit, and she's going to try to post it on the website. I'll actually circulate copies around for the board members. It's regarding the Imagitivity Night that was canceled because of the tornado warnings that we had not too long ago. But like I said, she's going to try to post it on the website, and it looks like the kids had a lot of fun.
Sorry.
Claudia Bailey at the middle school. They took their Spanish kids to La Carreta, where they practiced their restaurant vocab, and it was excellent. The 8th graders spoke in Spanish and made all their arrangements in Spanish. And they're also, the 8th grade Spanish classes are also doing their final oral presentations. They will be required to speak in Spanish only for 4 to 5 minutes, talking about themselves, their family, and their favorite things, etc. They have had some very impressive presentations so far. From Carol Mack at Matthew Thornton, we are having field days today, tomorrow, and Thursday for our students. These days are always a highlight for the students. Our PE, art, and music departments do a great job in making the day fun. The PTA supplies afternoon entertainment. If teachers haven't reported this to you, we've had some great field trips, once again with the support of the PTA and the parents. First grade went to Krista McAuliffe. Second grade had a theater experience earlier in the year. Third grade went to the Sea Science Center. Fourth grade does a historical tour of Londonderry and visits the Morrison House. Fifth grade went on to the Boston Duck Tour and amazed the tour guides with their wonderful knowledge of American history. It's a great time of year. And last but not least, I'd also like to submit to the board a copy of a DVD from John Hill and Denise Bernier, who we've seen these before. It's their adaptive woodworking and art program. That if you saw the last one that they did, it's difficult to not get emotionally connected to this program. So my compliments personally to John and Denise, who I work with, and I will pass this down, and hopefully people will get a chance to see that. And that is all.
Nancy?
I don't have anything to report this evening.
John?
As I mentioned to you guys earlier, I was at the town meeting yesterday, and we were talking a little bit about the dogs, and Dottie, who's over at the cable, runs the cable organization for us, she has stepped up to basically look at running a dog park, looking at getting a dog park in town. So those that are out there, if are interested in finding out what that's about, because that was a topic that we had last time we met, to contact Dottie and get involved with that.
Thank you. Ron?
No meeting.
Steve?
I don't have anything, but I would like to just take a moment, since I didn't have any meetings. I'd like to ask the parents to talk to your students, particularly your high school students, middle school students this time of year. Over the past month, there's been quite a few DWI arrests in Londonderry. Not all of these people are from our town, they come from other towns. But some of the people are 21 or even under 21. And I just think that families should spend a little time together having conversations about this. In particularly, as everyone knows, I tend to be a really strict guy. But if any of my children were to give me a call and tell me they were in a situation. It really wouldn't matter if they had been drinking when I had been tough on them about that they should never do it. But what would matter was they gave me a call. So parents, if you have a chance, just pass that on to your teens. Thanks.
Okay. Just a couple of notes from me. The middle school PTA had its final meeting of the school year earlier. Well, no, make that toward the end of May. And they are in the process of finalizing plans and budgets for the upcoming year. And I'd like to just take a minute to thank the officers of the PTO and the officers of all the PTAs and PTOs of all the schools in town for the amount of volunteer work they put in, organizing events, raising money, and supporting the schools in general. So thank you very much for your time and effort for that. It's greatly appreciated. Also, I attended the presentation of the senior projects at the high school last night. That was a very interesting event. 15 students, as the board has been briefed on before, presenting the outcomes of their projects, which ranged from everything from a prototype of a robot that would roam the halls of the high school delivering mail to a radio presentation regarding the impact and the pros and cons of the proposed Woodmont development. So some very imaginative, out-of-the-box work being done at the high school level by these students, and I expect there will be more than 15 coming next year. And as somebody asked me last night, what are we going to do when we have 300 students wanting to present their projects at the end of the school year? And I told them we'll put them in the new auditorium. Just two things, Nate and Steve both. If the faculty members who were behind these projects would like to come to a meeting and present them, they're certainly welcome anytime. I know we're getting in toward the summer, so I don't know what their availability would be. But if they're in the neighborhood of a night, just pass it up through the chain, and we'd be happy to put it on the agenda. We'd love to see things like this, recognize the teachers and the students who are involved in it. So thank you very much for that. Let's see, any other reports or things to mention? Go ahead, Nate.
One quick thing. We had a wonderful evening on Saturday at the Eddies. Where
Right.
Susie received her bell and her plaque for her award for being for Outstanding Service Award, which she received from the New Hampshire School Administrators Association. It was very, very pleasant evening, and it's a well-deserved award. And once again, we want to congratulate Susie on that honor.
I'd also like to thank our treasurer, John Conley, and Cindy Rice Conley, the town moderator, for giving me the ability to say that I actually had dinner with Miss New Hampshire. All right, moving on. The first thing under deliberations, Nate, is the staff development master plan request approval.
Yes, and we're graced with Laura Sampson this evening, who will present and respond to questions.
Is this going to be in English or Latin?
Latin.
Okay.
And you're going to have to conjugate the verbs, too.
You're aware
Ecce magnum opus.
You're aware Brooke's taking Latin next year, right?
Actually, no, I'm not, but that's thrilling.
Coming back anyway?
Of course.
Amoa
Delighted.
masa mat, that's what I remember.
Oh,
I
delighted.
sent him an email in Latin, just as a joke kind of thing, and he's like, "What is that?" So,
I ran it through Google, I understood it.
I sit before you all, and I thank you for taking the time to represent the Maine Staff Development Committee. And as you are aware, every 5 years, the state, in its wisdom, asks us to take a look at professional development. In 2006, this plan had what can only be described as a reincarnation, and largely due to the vision of our superintendent and the support of the administrative staff, where we have the entire plan predicated really on Charlotte Danielson. And the purpose of using her approach was to make the professional development plan far more reflective. The outcome, hopefully, being that staff, professional staff, would be in the role of learner, would identify areas where improvement was needed, all with a goal of getting student outcome to improve. 5 years has passed. We consulted all the constituencies, and I'm delighted to tell you that everyone felt that the plan was working well. It does require a great deal of time to go through the plan properly and to reflect, as one really ought to do. We feel very happy with it. We're very gratified that the state is looking very favorably on Danielson as well. So we were very fortunate to be a little ahead of the power curve on that. We have gone over every single word and made just wordsmithing changes, actually, tried to clarify some areas. You received an electronic copy, but you also, I hope, have a binder, which regrettably we're going to take from you because we hope, yes, that's it exactly. We're hoping to distribute those to the schools. It's a lot of paper when you make this many binders. So they will be going to the schools for their libraries for staff to access. I would be very remiss sitting here before you all if I didn't take this opportunity to thank you for your wisdom in understanding the import of professional development. But more important than that, for having the courage of your conviction and supporting it financially. The goal at the Londonderry School District is not merely highly qualified teachers. The goal is extraordinary teachers. And that requires a little extra effort. We think this is the way. We hope you will be able to comfortably approve it so that we may submit the plan to the Department of Education so that it will receive its imprimatur and we can soldier on with the coming academic
Imprimatur,
year.
You knew that was coming, didn't you?
Well, yes, and I pity them, their work, really. I mean, when you consider this is merely one plan, and they have to go over them all. Is there anything you'd like to ask about the plan?
One question, just to bring it out, is how many hours of training or professional development time are teachers being required to have during a 3-year period now?
One needs to have 30 hours in one's area of certification, however many areas of certification that might be, and 45 additional hours if you want to look at it in terms of hours.
And what kinds of things constitute these hours? What counts toward it?
Many of the things that are actually job embedded can count towards that. But, for example, innovative educational activities, training in technology could count on that. And I would use the high school, because of course I know it best, as an example. There was a huge, and still is, a huge literacy initiative. So, for example, we all read and we worked in book groups on literacy strategies. We did workshops on literacy strategies. That sort of thing would count as well.
Nate, off the top of your head, do you happen to know how many of our teachers are certified in more than one area?
I would say comfortably, somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 have multiple certifications.
So that means 50 to 60 of our people are going to need to take 30 hours in each of more than one area.
Right, it's 30, that's correct. So if you were certified, let's say, make it real simple. in elementary ed and special ed. That would be 60 hours that you would need in the content area, as well as the additional 45. So you're looking at 105 hours over a 3-year period.
Correct.
That's a fair amount of work. That's nearly a week per year.
Yes.
Thanks very much. Steve?
Just to illustrate the point, it's not, those extra 45 can be some fun things too, at least I thought they were fun. In the past, I had not done this with Londonderry, the Londonderry school system, but I did it with the Nashua school system for several years. And we taught aviation and how to teach aviation over at the Daniel Webster College, and brought in the teachers and gave them tools, aids, flight computers, maps, measurement devices in order to plan out a trip, and took them on a flight. So it doesn't always have to be boring. The thing that impressed me about it was they all did it on their own time. It was all on a Saturday or a Sunday, and it wasn't something that the school was funding for them. They did it on their own, and many took the tools back to their classrooms and then taught that subject in their class.
Indeed.
Anybody else? All right, I assume we need a motion on this?
Yes, sir.
May I have a motion to accept?
So move.
Motion by Ron, second by John. Even I get caught on that sometimes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That's 5-0. Flora, thank you. Thank everybody who was involved in this effort for their
Indeed.
outstanding work. It's quite a plan, and it will go a long way to helping ensure excellence in the district.
We thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And if we could pass these down to Nate, he will collect them and return them to the libraries.
Thank you for that.
Yes. Policies for third reading. Is there a motion?
Second.
I assume this is a motion to accept for adoption fund balance policy DAB, school bus idling policy EEACD, and food service meal pricing policy EEFBC. And was that motion by John and second by Ron?
That's correct.
All in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's 5-0. Thanks very much. Policies for first reading. Nate, this is yours.
As the board is aware, we try to keep up to date on any changes in legislation or court rulings, and also to review our policies on a regular basis to make sure that we're in compliance. Bringing before you tonight some recommended changes in regulations JG-R and JG-R procedures for student disciplinary action. I'll show you specifically where the changes are. If you go to the chart, level 4, under disciplinary options, you will see struck out in red less than 180 days versus long-term out-of-school suspension, and then we will insert in excess of 20 school days. Then, as you move to JGR, procedures for student disciplinary action, under short-term out-of-school suspension, we have added the following: unless otherwise stipulated in writing during the short-term suspension, the student shall not attend school, school-sponsored events, or occasion school property until restored by the superintendent or designated representative. Then if you go to the second page, we have added D. During the long-term suspension, the student shall not attend school, school-sponsored events, or occasion school property until restored by the superintendent. And then underneath that, a new addition, long-term out-of-school suspension school board, which reads, the school board is hereby authorized to suspend students in excess of 20 days for gross misconduct, failure to follow the reasonable rules of the school, violations of state or federal law, or as otherwise set forth in the student disciplinary policies of the Londonderry School District. During the long-term suspension, the student shall not attend school, school-sponsored events, or occasion school property until restored by the school board. And then under expulsion, we have added in the middle of the paragraph, school-sponsored events.
Can you touch briefly on what made all this necessary?
Yes, there was a recent Supreme Court case. It was Kellen versus the Sunapee School District. Basically, the part that sparked our interest in making the adjustments, their discipline policy went from long-term suspension, 20 days from the superintendent, to the school board, which said expulsion. So the ruling of the court was, yeah, it was a valid action to suspend the student for the reason they did. However, the policy precluded the school board from doing anything but expelling. All right, and so what this does, the changes here, give the school board the option so that if it's a long-term suspension, the school board can say, all right, instead of expelling you, we're going to suspend you for 30 days or 90 days. So it gives the board the flexibility that they need predicated on this recent Supreme Court decision. So, there you go.
Nate, is there any maximum on the number of days you can do a suspension? Because we've run into this issue before.
No, the board, the way this policy is written, you can do a 190-day suspension, you can do a 200-day suspension.
Gotcha.
Okay, so this gives you the flexibility to do that. And then also retains the board's right for expulsion too. So it gives you the flexibility I think you need, and would be in conformance with this new Supreme Court ruling. So.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just have one or two. What would constitute in this district that kind of a suspension, Nate?
Well, I'll give you an example. Let's say it was a drug and alcohol offense.
Yep.
Or a physical assault of some sort. The board may decide that that action would result in suspension for more than a school year, or less than a school year, or let's say 90 days. This allows the board to do it, because even under our old policy and procedures, the board, under this court ruling, which kind of doesn't make sense, but it is what it is, would allow the board to say, okay, we're not going to expel the student, it's only going to be for 90 days for whatever reason, depending on what happens. So it could be individual decision. In some cases where, let's say it's a weapons issue, the board's hand is kind of tied, and where the board would have to say expulsion. But under New Hampshire state law, a student can be expelled, but prior to the start of the new school year, can petition for an appeal hearing, okay, at which point the board could either rescind the expulsion or say, no, we're not going to do it. Or in this case now, you could say, well, we're not going to expel you, but it's going to be another 90 days or what have you. So the change here kind of gives the board additional flexibility.
No, thanks.
Ron?
Two questions, Nate. On the suspension that crosses over the September date, do they have the right to petition back in between that, or
If
a
it's-
suspension, not an expulsion?
No. The board can make a decision, let's say, let's take an example. Let's say the board holds a discipline hearing on a student, and it happens to be June 7th.
Yeah.
And the board decides that that student should be suspended for 90 days. How many school days we have till the end of the year, let's say it's 20. The remaining 70 would be picked up at the start of the next school year. So it can cross over school years.
I know on an expulsion, they're not allowed to attempt to go to another school
That's
in the
correct.
state. What about on a suspension?
Suspension, state law is silent on that, so if somebody was suspended for, let's say, 90 days or 40 days, and they moved to town X, they would not be barred from enrolling in that school. Whereas in the state of New Hampshire, if a student is expelled, no other public school in the state is under an obligation to accept that student.
Do we get to pay for them if they go somewhere else?
No.
Steve?
But they can go to another state.
Yes.
I'm glad Nate selected the illustration he did, because we've had that situation where we'll have an expulsion. So there's 10 days till the end of school, 5 days to the end of school, and the laws were very inflexible, and they can reapply for September. And for my 1/5, it was, they've only been expelled for 7 days. how can that be right for a grievous offense? So,
Yeah, the board has an option, and not only, you can look at it as, in one sense, merciful too, in the sense
Yeah.
that you may think in a given situation, an expulsion is not warranted if certain actions are taken by the student, so you can do a suspension instead, some combination. So I think it's advantageous both for the school as well as any students that are involved.
what's interesting is the case is actually rather fascinating, and I think that the parents intended it to go one way, and it ended up going another way that's very helpful to us.
Anything more on this subject?
No.
All right, is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Ron, second by Nancy to adopt for first reading policies JGR levels 1 through 4 offenses and JGR procedures for student disciplinary action. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that's 5-0. Thanks very much. Capital lease, Peter?
Yes. As part of the FY12 budget and the last few budgets, we've approved a capital lease as part of the budget process. As we know, the capital lease is mainly for the purchase of equipment for district operations. We've attached in the packet a list of the approved items as we went through the FY12 budget that were contained in the lease. This year, we're doing one more step that's new, which we'll hear what tonight for it. This one step is to avoid any confusion we had last year with bank attorneys in regarding to the actual date in terms of IRS rules of when the capital lease begins. There's an IRS rule that says that items to be purchased through a capital lease cannot be purchased or accepted in the lease 60 days prior to the approval of the capital lease. And for whatever reason, this became a muddy issue last year, and talking to Attorney Graham, we felt that by doing this tonight and approve, if you approve the concept which we've discussed in the budget and the declaration of intent, tonight begins under IRS rules the day that the capital lease has been blessed by the board. That means is if we were to buy anything 60 days before this, they would be accepted, and obviously in going into July, August, September. That's the reason for this new step, so to speak, in approval of the capital lease.
So you're basically asking for an additional vote to ratify the going ahead of buying the stuff we've already approved.
Yes.
Questions? None? Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second? Okay, I guess the motion by Ron, second by John, is to, how would we like to phrase this?
I would say to ratify the adoption of a capital lease for FY12 budget.
Okay.
That's all.
For a dollar amount?
You can put the dollar amount in of the 54525. And while you're on the subject, we will come back probably in July, maybe August, with the rate of interest.
Okay.
So you are just simply accepting the fact that you are blessing or accepting a capital lease arrangement with a rate of interest to be determined at a later date.
Mary, you got everything you need?
That's the dollar again?
540, comma, 525.
And that's not to exceed.
Yes.
Okay. If that is acceptable to the motioners, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's 5-0. Peter, before we go on to the CIP portion of the superintendent's report, I just wanted to add one more recognition. Tonight is the last of our meetings that will be directed by our intrepid director, Kelly Chase, who is a senior and is graduating at the end of the week. She's done the cable cast and web streaming of many of our meetings, and we appreciate your work. Thank you very much, Kelly. Superintendent's report.
Peter,
Yes.
CIP.
Every year, as you know, the community will adopt a capital improvement plan, and the capital improvement planning committee usually meets in the months of June, July, and August. The committee will meet several times during the month, gather information, acquire information, have presentations. Under the state law, in order to continue assessing impact fees, a capital improvement plan is required. It is up to the school board to recommend their capital improvement plan to the committee. The committee then holds meetings, deliberations, and then recommends its capital improvement plan to the planning board for final adoption. Once the planning board has its required public meetings, the capital improvement plan is approved and given back to the town council and the school board to do whatever it wants to do with it. It really satisfies state law to continue impact fees, and also gives the community an idea of what the capital needs are of the town for the next 6 years. It's always a rolling 6-year plan. On the capital improvement plan for the school district, contained in the 6 years is a district-wide renovation construction project and the ever-popular new SAU office. In year FY 18 and 19, which is 2 years out of the 6-year window, is the beginning of the auditorium. Each of the plans, as you can see, usually has, the year before the bond will be approved by the board and released, is a dollar amount for architectural engineering fees. This process of doing the planning, architectural engineering, before the actual adoption of the plan and budget really has done two things for us. One, it provides the guaranteed maximum price, which then is the dollar amount of the bond if the project is to go forward. And two, it pretty much outlines and highlights all the areas that need to be addressed. So it really limits surprises, it limits the amount of contingency that we need to hold. And in fact, you saw this when we did North School and we did the planning as we went along, as opposed to South School, which the plan was done way in advance. And you saw how smooth one went to the other. Not to say North School was rough, but it got delayed a little bit as plans try to catch up to the ProCon. So that's the plan. What we're asking tonight is to review it, look it over. We'll come back and ask the board to adopt the recommendation in the next board meeting, which will then be passed on to the CIP and then go forward. And as I said, once everything goes through, we'll come back with the final plan of what the planning board has blessed for its CIP for the upcoming year.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
Peter,
Yep.
I understand and concur with the use of the $100,000 prior to construction projects. That makes a lot of sense. I don't see why it would make sense in educational renovations type of deal. It would make the same type of sense if you're talking about paving and roofing and items like that, where the cost is really within 90 days, depending on the price of fuel and stuff like that. I see there's a difference on that.
Well, contained in projects like plumbing and Matthew Thornton, and some of those interior renovations, which is why we kept that number there. Now, you're correct in saying that number may change, but for instance, if we use the paving as an example for Matthew Thornton, we've already done a fair amount of architectural engineering costs associated with the design of the paving project in Matthew Thornton. So I would agree that maybe you don't need the full 100,000, but you will need something if we go forward and we do interior renovations where you got plumbing and other areas that will need to be looked at, reviewed, and planned out so that we don't bump into each other. You're right when you say there's really very little planning costs or associated with the roofing, but we're also looking at doing some interior renovations at Matthew Thornton. I think there's one at the high school. So you're correct. You may not need the full 100,000, but we're trying to be consistent with how we plan out the cost of each project.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
One more piece,
Go ahead.
just for the board's information. I mentioned this in the memo. the town is about ready to go out to bid for a bond. It's probably the road construction bond, I believe. They are expecting the interest to be somewhere around the mid 2% range, which is why I remember I said, if we're looking at, if you were asking my opinion, it would be, I think, at that rate, worthwhile to at least look at the renovation bond, given the fact that the environment is running at a 2% interest rate. So this may be one time where you move a bond project, whatever it is, up, not because of the economic conditions, but because of the market conditions of the bond market, giving a rate of around 2%. She means Sue Hickey, I believe is floating the note in about 2 weeks, so we'll probably know exactly what the interest rate is, but they are expecting at least under 3%. They're not looking for anything near a 3% rate. So that may play into your deliberation of thinking of moving things around to take advantage of market, as market being the bond interest market.
Peter, typically, what would the interest rate be?
Usually for us, don't forget we're tax exempt status, usually we're around 4%. If we were to do a normal year, and we would budget a bond, we would put in a budget about 4.25%.
Peter, you mentioned moving this up by 2 years.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah, right. Do you think the window of bonds at that rate will remain open that long?
It has been that way for the last couple of years. Now, whether you want to move it up, I'll get back to what Ron's discussion, if there is much less architectural engineering service required for this type of bond, whether you want to take advantage of the market and do it for the FY13, and then we could do the stuff that's not, has heavily architectural engineering services like roofing, and then do the interior work over the summer. So there's ways we can do that. I just bring it to the attention, I just thought you should know that there's a window of opportunity, I'll use the phrase of cheap money, and who knows how long it will last. It has been around, they've been suppressed for a while. I don't know how long it's going to last.
And if we were to do this, we'd need to act on it before we submit to the CIP?
The way it works is you give your recommendation, and then it goes to the planning board. When it comes back to you, you as the board and the town council has the right then to do whatever it feels. You always want to be somewhat consistent with the capital improvement plan, but it would be within your right to move, I'll use this example, to move this district-wide bond up to take advantage of the bond interest market. You'd be somewhat, I'll use the phrase, out of bounds if a whole new project you got brought up in March that wasn't even on the radar of the CIP plan.
Right.
In reality, the way it works is the school board kind of does this prior to the CIP meeting. The CIP meets with the town departments. They come up with a recommended CIP, and then the town acts on this in November, December. They see what the CIP has said, but then they determine what their needs are there. So we do it before the CIP and give them our best estimate. They take the CIP's approach of what the town needs, and then they'll do what they think is the best at the end of it. So 2 different approaches to the problem. So they can come up with a completely different plan.
And the last piece I'll give the board is the first bond principle that comes off the board is FY18, which is the middle school middle school project, and I think that's like $450,000 a year.
450?
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Is there any additional information that any of the board members would like to have before we consider this?
I just want more time.
Yeah. And the purpose was to give the information and come back in the next meeting.
All right, thank you. One question this does, go ahead, Ron.
Peter, can we have a list of what you're talking about for $3 million?
Yes. What I can do is, Chuck and I, and this is not all of them, we sat down and put together, and brainstormed, and we come up with about $3 million right away, and then on the bottom, other items to be discussed. and this is not even a complete list either, but this gives you a flavor of what we're talking about when we say paving, roofing, interior renovations.
Go ahead.
In some of what I said, as far as asking for more time, we did discuss this during budget season, but we did not determine at that time that this was a direction that we would absolutely take.
Correct.
We were still looking at doing it as more of an expense item,
Through the
a
maintenance
yearly
trust fund.
expense item through the maintenance trust fund
Yes.
versus bonding. I just want to make that clear to everyone in the public.
Right, and to be honest, you're right, and the reason why I just bring it up is the rate of interest, and does that change anybody's,
What about the changes in our bond rating? Does that have any effect on that? Because that's what they're offering the town, but our bond rating changed because of our fund balance issue.
Well, it went down, if you remember, and then a few of us yelled, and they changed their formula, for lack of better words, and we actually went up a little bit. So I think they got the hint from not just Londonderry, but from a lot of the municipal public sector that, yeah, we may not have a whole lot of fund balance because of certain reasons, but show me the last time we ever defaulted.
There were a number of cards and letters that went
Right.
out. So, all right, thanks.
Any additional? Go ahead, John.
Quick question, Peter. On other needs you have at the high school, a roof for the gym.
Yes,
I'm a little surprised at that only because the gym is fairly new still.
well,
And when these roofs last a lot longer.
it's a 10-year warranty. And don't forget, when you do a bond, it isn't necessarily, in fact, I'll tell you, looking at the items, there was no way we could do anything in 1 year anyways. I'll look at the $3 million items, you're probably looking at a 3-year window of getting them done. So it's not like a operating budget where you float the note in FY13, everything has to get done. You've got usually like 5 years. So you could do, in your case, the gym roof the last year or the 5th year of the note, which is 5 years beyond FY13. And the money's still available and appropriated and everything like that.
Haven't we been hearing from Chuck and people that the expected life on some of these roofs was closer to 30 years?
Certain roofs, you know.
Of the ones that we're doing,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the gym has a roof that doesn't meet that threshold?
Well, the gym was not done, I'll say, by us, it was done as part of a new construction project. Like, on the list coming up is the Moose Hill
Yeah.
roof. Believe it or not, Moose Hill roof, 10-year warranty when you do the construction is coming due.
And that's indicative of the actual life expectancy of it?
When you get to the 10-year warranty, you start getting leaks.
Okay.
And as I said, the warranty goes away, so now everything is on us. The one that is of concern is one of the middle school roofs.
Well, the
And
next time we
that's on-
build a building,
that's
can
on
we
the
put a
list.
better roof on it? One that lasts 25 years?
And
The next time we build a building, can we put a
Yeah.
roof on it
When
that lasts
we do
25
the
years?
auditorium, John, we'll do that.
Yeah, well, that's coming up.
Hmm.
Okay, any other,
I have one
Nance?
question, yeah. Thank you. On the Matthew Thornton, you have classroom carpet. Is that for all the classrooms?
mainly it's the upstairs,
Okay,
the orange carpet.
yeah.
Yeah.
You don't like that anymore, Carol? Yeah, I don't blame you. Okay, thank you. Oh,
That it?
Yeah.
Ron?
How long would you float a bond for?
I mean, it would depend on the note, the amount, the final amount, and depend on what the board, I would say, if you asked me today, I'd be looking at a 10-year note. Could go 15, I wouldn't think you want to go more than 15.
I guess the other question I would have, and I'd have a hard time putting anything in here that has a life less than 10 or 15 years
You
on
couldn't.
this, because that's an O&M cost, but we are. Carpet, gym floors.
Well, okay,
Just, I would revise that to, if you're gonna, and I'm not saying I'm for this, but I would never vote for something that I have to replace while I'm still paying it off.
right. And again, this is to give you an idea of what we're talking about when we say renovations and paving and roofing.
Anything else? All right, I guess we don't need a motion on this. One question that I have, Nate, in parallel with this, I guess, is, given the NEASC report and the CIP coming up anyway, is there any change in the environment that would justify looking at the auditorium question again?
Actually, no. I mean, we're gonna look at it because NEASC is requiring us to look at it. The only potential action I could see at this point would be a review of the project and whether or not we could go about the business of doing, let's say, fundraising in anticipation that somewhere down the road, you might be able to do it. Because existing right now, there is an additional 2-year moratorium on building aid from the state. That's number one. So for 2 more years, you're not going to accept any new projects. Secondly, I'm absolutely dead certain that the formula and the process and procedure they will put in place, if they ever do, for building aid, will be similar to basically what's in 48, 49 other states. That is, they will accept applications, they will rank order the applications. The state will say, we have $1 million, we'll take items, project 1 and 2, which we've rated the highest. Those would be the ones that we would fund at whatever level they decide they're going to fund. The next year, everybody submits their projects all over again. So if you were number 3, you could be number 53 the next year, depending on what's happening. So knowing the condition of school buildings around the state, I think it would be fair to say that an auditorium for Londonderry High School would not be in the top tier consideration by the state of New Hampshire. That's just a guess on my part.
Yeah.
But knowing that we have schools that are one step away from being condemned, and not us.
Thank you for the clarification.
And there are,
Come on, Carol, you said you fixed that.
and knowing that there are other school facilities that are in desperate need of repair, having the state fund an auditorium for us, I think, is foreseeable future, not there. So I think we have to look at it based on the NEASC report to say that we looked at it, and we can look at, some other advantages, but getting money from the state is not something that I would foresee.
Anybody? Wasn't there a mention during some of the Woodmont open houses that, well, gee, maybe they'd like to build us an auditorium?
My understanding was that they maybe had an interest in constructing an auditorium of some sort
On their property.
on their property.
Right.
Okay. If there's another auditorium in town, that certainly is advantageous. Additional facilities are fine, but there was no commitment to build a $15 million auditorium attached to Londonderry High
For
School.
sure. Is there any reason to explore with them exactly what kind of thing they might be talking about and when?
Yeah, I suppose we could. That's certainly something that we can have the committee look at and we can explore.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I mean, clearly, I think you're right that the state process and the hope of the state contributing significantly to building us an auditorium is probably pretty thin for the foreseeable future. And I know that previous auditorium committees have looked at, for lack of a better phrase, public-private partnerships. Just wondering if there is anything that might have changed or be ripe for reexamination in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think you're right about state funding. I got a better chance of playing center field for the Yankees than we do for getting.
Well, they are getting kind of old.
Huh?
They are getting kind of old.
They are.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else? Anybody? Anything from the assembled multitude? No? Okay, I guess that's the end of our agenda. Is there a motion for non-public?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we move to non-public under RSA 91A3, Section 2A through F.
Second. Motion by John, second by Ron. This is a roll call vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Nice
Aye.